My boss asks and welcomes feedback about her. That seems like a good quality in a boss. How do I tell my boss that I don't have confidence in her skills? I'm learning and she doesn't always know what she's doing, so I've turned to a senior colleague instead. She also regularly fails to show up, so the senior member always picks up the slack. So it sounds like your boss isn't a great boss. It's awesome that she wants feedback. Feedback is a gift. That was one of the biggest things I've learned in my career. It stings and it hurts a little bit, but it always makes you better. And ultimately, you have the opportunity to either take feedback or reject it. But the notion that someone is caring to give you feedback is a great gift in and of itself. If people don't care about you and people think you suck, they will not give you feedback. Now, that said, it sounds like your boss kind of sucks. So if I were your senior colleague, I would be super annoyed. I'd be like, why the fuck am I doing this woman's job for her? I should have that job, which is probably what that senior colleague is thinking. And in your case, it sounds like you love to learn, which means that you should spend the majority of your time, or every inch of time that you can, with people who will teach you. I think bosses who don't show up and bosses who don't know what they're doing are super dangerous, because ultimately the shit's going to hit the fan, and most likely it's going to be blamed on someone else besides the boss, which maybe is you. So I think what I would do is a couple of things. One is make sure that senior colleague of yours knows how much you appreciate the time that they're investing in you. Say something nice, send them a card, get them a gift, tell them how much you appreciate them, and also indicate how valuable the information is and how much more you're willing to learn. May as well, like in this case, shore up your ability to be better at your job by developing more of a relationship with the person who is doing all the work. The second thing with your boss is, I think it's totally appropriate to say, hey, I have some thoughts about how we could do X better. I wouldn't make it a you thing. I think bosses have a hard time sometimes taking feedback in general. I think bosses sometimes have a really hard time taking feedback from people who are junior. So in this case, if you want to help make your boss better, and you don't have a forum to do that through HR or through employee surveys or whatever types of that stuff exists at your company, I might have a one-on-one with your boss and say, hey, I have a couple ideas for ways that we can make things better. One, your feedback is so great and valuable. I love when you make time for whatever type of meeting that you have. It would be really helpful for me if you and I could get a one-on-one, or if you could be in XYZ meeting so that I can learn from you. When you give feedback to a boss that the boss sucks, I think sometimes it helps to be a little bit humble in giving that feedback, and a little bit broader and a little bit more inclusive of a we versus a you. So I'd start there. I would say the second thing is, hey, one thing that's confusing to me is I sometimes get direction from you to do blank, but in reality, I should be doing the opposite of blank. Tell me how I can best navigate this. And honestly, saying things this way, it gives your boss the feedback that there's unclear direction. It gives your boss the feedback that they're absent, but you're doing it in a way where your boss won't feel directly criticized. You should be confident in what you know, what you do, and how you do it. But by being a little bit humble in that conversation, by being a good listener, and by being a little bit more broad than you intend to be, sometimes it creates the forum for a more positive conversation. Ultimately, it's up to your boss's boss to say she sucks and should go. But I think you giving the feedback at least lets you sleep at night and say, I contributed, and trying to make your work situation better. So our second question is in our DMs, which I love when people DMs. It's from a guy, and he said, hey, Erica, I just started my 3-week paternity leave. Good for you. I work for a private construction-related firm. Based on past experiences, I believe I will be subtly or not so subtly pressured into coming back into the office earlier than the 3 weeks I previously discussed with the owner. Any tips on balancing the ideal employee role and the committed husband and new father role? Ooh, this is so interesting. It's kind of like reverse gender discrimination, I think is what they call it. So in this case, you should take your full 3 weeks. You are by law afforded your 3 weeks, or I don't know what the law stipulates, but you're afforded paternity leave. I think what I would do with your boss is really probably just I would be proactive and I would be honest. So I would be proactive by, instead of waiting for them to subtly pressure you and give you the like, nudge, nudge, raising kids is a woman's job, bro, like come back to work, I would get ahead of that. And what I would do is I would say, hey, boss, I'd send him an email or I would give him a call and say, I'm coming back to the office on November 20th or whatever the date is. And I'm really excited to come back. I can't wait. I have all these ideas. Here's how I'm thinking about navigating the transition back. I'm going to take my full 3 weeks of paternity leave. We have a lot going on here. We have a new baby. It's chaos. Nobody knows what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. But I would love to schedule, a call or a couple calls the week of this week, the second week of paternity leave, and the third week of paternity leave to make sure that I transition back in the best way possible. I think having that type of approach, one, it states firmly that you're going to come back at the end of the 3 weeks. Two, it shows an ideal employee-ness, as you talked about. It shows proactivity, it shows thought, it shows consideration, and it shows that you're actively caring about being great at work in the context of needing to be at home. So that's what I would do. And then I would enjoy your paternity leave and give your wife a hug and let her take a nap in the afternoon. Having a baby is exhausting. And that's what you should be doing the next 3 weeks. 3 weeks also isn't that long. And if the company's going to go sideways in the 3 weeks that you're out, you probably should make more money and you probably should be running the company. Third question also was in my DMs, which I really liked. I took a new job earlier this year. It's work for home and more money, but I do substantially less and I feel much less important in the new job. I used to run shit, and now it's a few meetings where I tell suppliers how to build stuff correctly. I think this is such an interesting question because I think there's so many people when the world went virtual during COVID that were so psyched to work from home. And then you had the great resignation where everyone was so psyched to make more money. And now everyone is home, disconnected, disassociated, making more money, but feeling less fulfilled. And obviously the quiet quitting group is yay, I make more money to do less. I'm going to keep doing that. But I think for the people who want fulfillment and purpose in their career, it doesn't matter that you're making more money if you're not fulfilled and if you're not feeling like you're contributing to something big. It sucks. I remember in my career, I was so paranoid. I worked in Boston and I knew that it was a pyramid. So the higher up I got in the ranks at the agencies in Boston, I knew that there were fewer jobs to be had. I know the chances of finding a job were far less. And I knew that it was more cutthroat. And I was always so nervous to make more money without having more responsibility. And I think that making money is one thing, but I think one of the byproducts of having teams that are really virtual is that you do just feel less important. And you are less important because everybody's less important because everyone is less connected. And I think that is one of the worst things that's coming out of virtual work is just the lack of connection to other people, the lack of connection to your job, and the lack of fulfillment and purpose that you feel because everything just becomes watered down. I was having lunch with one of the Penn people last week, and they were saying how, some parts of their business have really moved to be 100% virtual, and how hard it is to make people feel connected to something when they're never at the same place, when they're never at something. So in terms of my advice on this question, what I would say is this is not the job for you. I think you can try to initiate more connection. I think you can try to initiate experiences that bind you to other people and that create purpose and that make you feel like you're moving the company forward. I think there may be an open question of if your company will go back to work. And, can you be one of the first people to do that? But ultimately, if the company itself is satisfied with virtual work and moderate disengagement, then this is not the place for you because you should be learning in your job every day and you sound supremely talented. You should be able to get a job that lets you do that. And ultimately, that's better for you. That's better for your employer. It's better for your career. And it's also better for your head. It's just better for how you feel every day at work. Okay, last question. I have an opportunity to take over as the manager of my team. My struggle is I also may have an opportunity for a new sales role within the company, which is what I really thought my next step would be here. The manager job certainly pays well. The sales job pays really well. And I've never been one to chase a title or strive to climb the corporate ladder or make $1 million. I just want to be happy, work somewhere I love, and do well enough so my family's in a great spot. How do I decide which I'm the best fit for? Well, it sounds like you're a great fit for both, so congratulations. I think the bigger question is which one is a fit for you. So put the money aside. Like, yes, salespeople get paid exorbitant amount of money, but when salespeople don't hit their quotas, salespeople are the first people to get fired. So while the money may look really good, I think the bigger question for you is, do you want to be a salesperson? Do you get up every day loving to go develop relationships with people, like chomping at the bit to cold call people, wanting to write a zillion emails that nobody responds to? Like, sales, for as much as people shit on salespeople, sales is a tough job. You have to take a lot of rejection. You meet a lot of resistance. And if you don't perform, you don't get paid, period. And most likely you're out of a job. So the thing I think for you to think about is, picture yourself in 5 years. You know you want to be happy at work. You know you want your family to be in a great place. You know you want to be fulfilled. Which path do you think is going to get you there? If you take a manager job, does that open other manager jobs for you? Does it open bigger manager jobs for you? How passionate are you about managing people? Like, maybe start there. If you take the sales path, what's the best possible outcome and what's the worst possible outcome? And then really, I think you have to trust your gut in terms of where do you think you want to be in 2 years from now, 3 years from now. I think 5 years from now is kind of an impossible horizon, but really think about, do you imagine yourself being happiest and most fulfilled as a salesperson? Or do you imagine yourself being happiest and most fulfilled as a manager? And whatever that answer is, take that job. Don't worry about the money right now. The money right now will sort itself out. There are jobs that are more lucrative and less fulfilling and higher risk. There are jobs that are less lucrative but more powerful that set you up for longer term success. Just decide which path you want to go on and you'll make the right choice. Last bonus Q&A. So I was DMing with this person the other day. So one of the things is everyone at Barstool will tell you is that when I'm on an airplane, I start thinking a lot and then I get very bored and then I just start to spam people with work. So I've gotten the feedback that people do not like that, shockingly. So I'm trying to do that less. So then I just start answering work advice questions in my Instagram, which is, I actually love doing. I find it super soothing. So anyways, I had this woman reach out to me. She lives in New York City. And she's gotten a job outside of New York City for another company. And it's a step up. It's like a big move forward. And she's like, I don't know if I should take it or not. And the reason what she said was like, hey, right now this company wants me in the office 1 to 2 days a week. And it's a reverse commute. And for anybody who commutes in and out of New York City, you know it sucks. The trains suck. Everything sucks. But I don't mind a commute. I've always had a commute. I've actually usually had a really long commute. And honestly, I think a commute is a way just to get your work done or to get a little bit of peace before you get into the chaos of work. So for me, I always liked having a commute because it meant that I could really get all my shit together going into work and I could get myself organized so that I could relax when I left work. When I worked and lived in New York City or when I worked and lived in Boston, I felt like I actually always bled work into life and I didn't have a good balance or distance between the two, which is a general theme in my life, but that's not what this is about right now. Anyways, so the woman was like, I think I'm going to put into my contract that I never have to work in the office more than 1 or 2 days a week. And was kind of like, that seems like a good idea, right? And I was like, oh my God, the plane's taking off and I don't have any Wi-Fi. And I was like, pump the brakes, do not fucking do that. So the reason I think that's a bad idea is, one is people have commuted since the beginning of time. The notion that you shouldn't have to commute to work, I think, is a massively limiting notion. You may like a job with a small commute. You may like a job working from home that has no commute. But the reality is your career should really not be dictated on the distance your work is from where you live. It's without a doubt a question. It's without a doubt a factor. But don't limit your upside because you have to travel a little farther, and you may have to travel to work more than 2 days a week. So I was like, pump the brakes. Absolutely do not do that. Go crush your new job. Be awesome at this job. Use those 2 days to call your mother or send a bunch of emails to your friend or shop on Instagram or whatever it is you want to do. Don't hate your commute. Make the most of your commute. But oh my God, don't limit what your future role could be at this new company by saying that you'll never work in the office more than 2 days a week. Don't limit your future choices by virtue of what you care about today. So, all right, so that was the last Q&A story. But I loved that she wrote it, and I loved that I got to talk to her, and she was like, okay, great, I'm not going to do that. And I was like, felt so great. And then somebody else DM'd me this morning that they took our advice and they got promoted in their job, which was awesome. Somebody called in to work like a girl. I love that.